Hello and welcome to episode 303 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, the place where the small press makes a big noise. I'm Vince Hunt, writer of MI666, and joining me as always are the creator of the webcomic Vanguard, Dan Butcher.
Hello.
The ghostwriter of many a postcard, Mr. Tony Esmond.
I think we might out me today. I think everyone now has had their postcards and realised it's me.
Oh, yeah. well, we'll get into that shocking exclusive soon enough. But this week we are also joined by the host of another podcast you really must check out if you haven't already. The show is the Mega City Book Club, and it's a pleasure to welcome Eamonn Clarke to the show. Hello, sir.
Hi, guys. Stay awesome.
Hey. No, too soon. It's too soon.
About 2 hours too soon. That's good. We like your enthusiasm. We're encouraged by it. Yeah.
Honoured to be here.
Oh,
pleasure, chum.
Tony's given me a list of words I can't say, and I'm just looking up what they mean. So.
Well, there's going to be no Dan's dictionary this week, so that won't be a help.
That's a shame.
Yes.
But you know what is? Oh no, I messed it up. I messed up the segue. I'm sorry. I was.
Go with it. Just go with it. Keep going.
Just go
Keep
where?
rocking.
Go where? Oh, I'll tell you where I should go.
Yeah.
I should go to comichouse.com. Yes,
go.
Comic House are our sponsor. And thanks, guys. I think we saved it. I don't think they'll know.
No one knows that.
No one.
I bought a comic drunk last week, so I don't know. I don't think you're doing too badly, to be fair.
You get comic drunk every week.
No.
But Comic House are our sponsor. They are the indie comic marketplace with a difference because they truly love the indie books that they want you to check out. If you go to comichouse.com, there's a huge selection of titles on the database. Lots of people are posting their stuff on there, and it's another way of sort of avenue of start selling your books. But they have an app that you really must check out. Sign up for only £3 a month subscription service, basically like Netflix for comics. I'm just going to lean into that now after a couple of years of doing it. It's only been, 4 or 5 years?
Netflix haven't sued us yet. So
no, they haven't. Yeah. Well, Netflix, if you're out there, no, no one, they don't listen to this show. But they really should, because then they discover Comic House, because you get access.
Where are we going with this one?
To an enormous library of. Look, I'm trying, Tony. There's an enormous library of indie comics on the Comic House app, such as, Dan.
We've got Zero Medal issue 1 and 2, and that's from Brazil. We've got Snake Claws Volume 1 issue 6 by Edison Neo. That's from Singapore.
That's before it goes on Comixology as well. Because 5's just gone on Comixology. Yeah. So if you go on Comic House, you get it early.
And all the others. Just for the one fee. Get all the comics, not like comic.
You get all of them, but like Dan said there, there's it's not just UK comics; it's worldwide. There's creators from all over the world that are adding their comics there. And if you're a creator and you've just got some digital PDFs lying around, add them to the Comic House site, and people will check them out. Because the people that are part of that really want to read comics, which is brilliant. And if you want to find out more for a 14-day free trial, go to comichouse.com today, and tell them we sent you.
Yeah, have a read, have a browse.
Yeah.
Many of the titles we reviewed have been put on the app, and the host's comics are also on there. So take a look.
Yes. I think that might be the most professional one yet.
Yeah, that was smooth.
That was smooth, wasn't it?
That was great. I was impressed just watching it.
I mean, you're literally watching the car go over the cliff live and in real time, aren't you, Eamon, this week?
No, it's all right. It's great. Yeah. Glass City, that's what I'm reading on Comic House.
That's on there now, isn't it? Yeah, he's a member of the group. Yeah.
Nice. What, of the Facebook group?
Yeah.
Oh, lovely. Well, more and more people should be. But what group's that? New listeners? Actually, if they're
Awesome
new listeners,
Comic Chat,
they've probably stopped listening by now, haven't they?
That's nice. All right.
Yeah. Yes, but the Awesome Comics Talk group is amazing, and you should join it. And if
you're a member of it, there's a chance you might get a postcard from me.
Yes.
Hooray.
Yes. Let's cover like this exclusive, shocking reveal. Because I'm just getting it down from the pinboard. Allow me to read you a bit of fan mail that I got.
Oh, that's nice.
In the post this week.
Yeah.
I'm obviously not going to divulge my address, but it reads as follows: Hi, Vincey. Hope you are well, and the move went well. We've just got back from a lovely mini break at Centre Parks. What tremendous fun. Did a lot of cycling, so that can be a little traumatic. But I think the bruising has gone down now. Might have buns for tea. Brian and Pascal. Now, before you think, what is this strange haiku of a postcard that may just be the ramblings of a madman who doesn't quite know where they are or what they're talking about? Brian and Pascal are two individuals very close to Tony.
Yes.
Why are they close to you, Tony?
They're my balls.
I had to explain to my lovely wife who they were.
I've got your card here, Danny. Shall I read it, or do you want me to read it, or have you got it?
I've got I've got it right here. Hold on.
Okay, Danny.
I love the fact that we were so shocked by this. We've got it near us.
I called Vincent Vincey and Dan Danny because I thought that was nice.
Hi, Danny. Hope you it's great with you, and you're not letting the lockdown get you down. It's good to have a hobby, and I've recently taken to collecting obscure beer bottles. They can come in some really interesting shapes and sizes, and labels have some fantastic art. I'm feeling much better after I fell into that broom. Is that?
Yeah, I fell onto a broom.
Onto that broom. I might have some cheese for tea. Brian Pascal.
I mean, what I love about it is the story. I mean, it's a little bit of No Country for Old Men, isn't it? Because the story's going in a certain direction, and then all of a sudden it just stops.
Boom.
So I read you the one I sent to Sarah Harris. It says, "Hi,
Hang on,
Sazza."
are you keeping copies of these?
Yeah, it's an ongoing art project. Hey, Sazza, this is a great photo of a minibus and a bridge. As soon as I saw it, I said to myself, you know who'd enjoy this postcard? Sazza, that's who. I'm sending it to you. I've had a busy day. Earlier I saw a horse. How cool was that? And I had some cheese for lunch. Catch you soon, lol. Brian and Pascal.
I mean, I think it's lovely. Do you know? It's I mean, I will say, I think one of them wrote the address and the other one wrote the message because they spelt Vincey two different ways.
I sent one to Tom Stewart in the name Mavis Crust, and I sent it to his address, but I addressed it to someone called Derek Cabbage. And I felt so bad because he thought he had a bit of a stalker, so I bought him a book as a present to apologise. Yeah, and then I sent one to Christian Wildgoose. That was from Brian and Pascal. And I rang. He just happened to ring me out of the blue, just nothing to do with suspicion. And I was sort of chatting to him. I went, he just said to me, "Oh, how are you? La la, how's work? La la la." I went, "Have you you had a postcard recently?" And he went, and he sort of started hyperventilating and shouting at me. Tim and Laura had been wondering who it was the whole previous day and been asking people they knew called Brian if they'd sent a postcard. Yeah.
I must say, Joe did say to me, like, at first, who is this that sent you this card? Because I mean, she was worried that someone had my address and was sending this kind of stuff. And then when she read it and then asked the question, "Who are Brian and Pascal?" word for word, she stopped, just looked at me and went, "This is the sort of person that you associate with," and then just walked out of the room.
And I have to say, if I had your address to hand, Eamonn, you would have got one too.
Oh, right, okay. I'm looking forward to get one. Can I have mine from Graham Peanut?
Graham Peanut, yeah. Mavis Crust, Graham Peanut. Vernon's one of those. A guy called Vernon. Derek Cabbage.
Derek Cabbage, was it? Right, okay, brilliant. Yeah. I mean, what an amazing lineup this is. But, I mean, you've just got a job lot of postcards, haven't you?
Well, I've got opposite, where I sit in my new office, is a post box opposite. And I was sitting there thinking, what can I do to wind you lot up? And I thought, I'll go on eBay and buy some. It's not actually that easy to get postcards that haven't been written on, you know? So I ordered these postcards, and a lot of them were just of minibuses. So the bloke must have minibuses. Minibuses on bridges, a postman in a minibus, you know, sort of thing. And the bloke must have, he actually wrote to me. He must have thought all his Christmases had come at once because I bought these shitty postcards off him. And he said, "Oh, by the way, there's only 25. The advert says 26." I said, "Oh, don't worry about it, mate. It's all right." And he went, "Oh, okay, thanks for being thoughtful, you know." I don't know, whatever, you know. And I got these through the post. I've got a few more left.
Oh, well, let that be a warning to you all, people. and also, if you do get something weird in the post, there's a good chance it's Tony.
It's from Tony's balls. And it's got a broom Doom story.
Yep. It's got all kinds of stories. But how was Centre Parks, Tony? How was the bike ride? Was it all right?
Right, yeah, I love Centre Parks, me. I've never been to Centre Parks. I don't know.
I have.
Yeah, I doesn't surprise me.
Have you been to A&E with a broom-related injury?
Right, so what are we going to talk about
have
this
you
week?
Have you ever come across a broom-related injury?
I have, yes, I have. Yeah.
Yes, now we know why you're here. Yeah.
And when I worked in A&E, as I'm sure Tony knows this already from experience, not his own, but it's always the story that, you know, when I clean the house, I like to get naked first, and then I slipped, and I fell on the Hoover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why they created Hetty the Hoover.
Right.
I was doing my morning squats over the shopping, and then the cucumber just happened. Yes.
Jesus.
It's got lubricant on it.
Yeah.
Jesus. Well, that tub smashed in the bag.
Yeah, and the full.
Yeah. Like I could.
Have I told you my Jimmy Carr story, Tony?
No, you haven't. No.
All right, I'll be very quick. Have I got time for a quick story?
Of course.
Yeah.
It's Jimmy Carr, the comedian, isn't it?
Yeah, the one who's got the new hair transplant, isn't he?
New hair transplant, doesn't pay his taxes. Did a gig at Cambridge Corn Exchange that I went with the family.
Right.
And he started doing this thing about doctors and said he was really, whenever he met a doctor, he always wanted to ask them life and death questions. But he always ended up asking them the same mundane question. And he shouted out, "Are there any doctors in the audience?" And I got a bit excited and put my hand up. Turned out I was the only one. So he said, "I'm going to ask you the question." He said, "I don't want to ask you life and death questions. I want to ask you what's the weirdest thing you've ever pulled out of someone's bottom." And fortunately, I had a good answer, which I can tell without breaching patient confidentiality. I said, it was a plastic Humpty Dumpty toy. And immediately he earned his money by coming straight back and saying, "Blimey, did you need all the king's horses and all the king's men to get it out?"
Oh my God!
Sorry to inject that. I've taken the tone down.
No,
brought it up.
Yeah.
I mean. By the way, if anyone's listening, this is a comic book podcast. we talk about making independent comics. Although, Tony, this would be, I think there could be, if you scan these, there could be a collection.
Yeah.
In the future.
Yeah. I wrote one to Johnny Campbell and Johnny Cannon, sorry, and it was something like, "This is such and such. She used to think she was famous, but now she works in the Wimpy in Chesham. I always thought she was a bit of a slag." That's the sort of content of it. And he made up this whole backstory and put it on Facebook today.
I wondered what that was. I was like...
That's not like Johnny.
I just got a message from him saying, he guessed immediately. He says, "You're demented," I think is the message he sent me.
Yeah. I think I actually recognised your handwriting, Tony. That's as soon as I
Tom Stewart said to me, "You got the handwriting of a little old lady." I said, "Fair enough."
You do.
Yeah.
I think Tony's
pack it all
handwriting's
in
nice.
there. Pack it on the card, you know.
So my wife said who are Brian and Pascal, and I was like, and the Tony's testicles, and then she gave me the postcard.
Hand sanitizer.
When Daryl Thorpe's missus read the last Atomic Hercules, and he told her that he was going to work with us, she just looked at him and she read it, gave it back to him, and then went, "Why?"
I listened to that podcast of you when you got Daryl on, and it's you, and that's a great one.
Funny, isn't it? Yeah,
really enjoyed that.
Yeah, we've done one for the Patreon actually. We do have to do one. We agreed to do one a month, so we just finished another one. It goes off the rails immediately, which is where I talk about having bought a comic when pissed, and I couldn't remember buying it. And I found the bloke's name on the envelope and said, "Did you send me a comic?" He said, "Yes, you bought it." And I went, "Oh yeah, shit, I must have been drunk."
I'll tell you one thing. It's interesting. Like someone said to Daryl, "Oh, you don't do that, wasn't it? Like your style couldn't do that." I can't remember the wording Daryl used, but essentially they said he wouldn't do those kind of things. And it's like, well, usually an artist can pretty much do anything.
Yeah, I think he's done it well.
Sort.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, thanks to everyone on the call actually, because you're all patrons. Thank you. Yeah, it's very kind of you.
All right. Well, we're just enjoying the comics we get. I was about to say free comics. Well, it kind of is.
How are you finding the patron comic experience, Tony?
All right, man. Actually, yeah, I'm finding it. It's something to do most days. sort of just retweet it, or if it depends on who's, because I only have one day that I'm responsible for, is one day at the weekend.
Gotcha.
And Daryl's got, but you can schedule them all. So we're already scheduled like a month ahead. So it's not as if you have to do a huge amount. I do those little videos, like back issue video things that I do. And I just do one of them a week and then sort of fumble about trying to upload it to and then have to ring Daryl or Adam.
Recommend once a while, make one free and then promote that on social media.
Yeah, we're about to do that actually with some of the pages, because if it was Herc, everyone would know what they were getting, but because it's this new character, nobody knows. So we're about to do make a few pages free. Yeah, no, good idea, man. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of podcasts do Patreon, don't they? Have you something you've ever thought of, Eamonn? Or
I haven't. No, I don't. I mean, I don't particularly want to, but I know Space Spinner 2000 do. Now got a Patreon. Yeah. In fact, I think I probably shouldn't say actually, because they were advised not to at first, but they've decided to do it, and they've got a Patreon and they put out bonus stuff as well. Wow. Did the review process ever get back to you as to what the delay was? I mean, serious question.
No, they never did. It's a weird one. We submitted it to go live, and they okayed it, and then we went to press live on it a couple of hours before we were due to, and they said we're reviewing it, and that was the Thursday. Well, for American time, it was like 3:30, 4 o'clock Thursday afternoon before Bank Holiday Friday, before Good Friday, and it said no, it's got to be reviewed. So we sort of sat there, and I tried to email someone. There's like a box you fill in and press send, and never got anything back. And then Saturday morning, it said just to let you know we're reviewing your content. And we thought that's weird. And then we got another one. We got another one on the following day, saying we are reviewing your content. I don't know why. I wonder if it was something to do with the weekend, the long weekend.
So
yeah, it could have been. Yeah. It's almost like one of those. When you call up a call center about something, and you're on the line for like 45 minutes listening to the
music,
the awful music. You get through to someone, and all of a sudden it hangs up. Yeah. And then you've got to go back to the line again.
I wonder whether... It was a weird one, though, because I can't imagine that Patreon don't have to do some form of due diligence to make sure that they're not suable for the content they have on their site.
Mate,
I did
a fairly risky post, and it got tagged immediately. My account got upgraded to like an adult, and I was like, no, I don't want... I've removed the post. I didn't mean for that to go like that. And they responded and changed it. So they are watching.
Yeah, so I wonder if the first thing you put in when you Google Tribute Press, whatever it's going to be, me, Adam, whatever it's going to be, comes up as a piece or a blog or a tweet or something saying we'd been banned off Kickstarter. I wonder whether that's when they decided to hand it up the chain to someone to give it a bigger review or something. That's just the only possibility I can think of, really.
But it's on now, and it's
it seems to be going quite smoothly, thanks to everyone who's backed it. We've got a good number of people, and we're never going to be millionaires, but it's nice to see people reacting to stuff. We get quite replies and things, which is good. Yeah.
I think some people. I mean, one of the fascinating things when we had Elise Richardson on, and she was talking about it and stuff. Creators like her and you guys and stuff like that. It's very much creating the Patreon and giving people something for it. I think sometimes, as with all crowdfunding, I think, especially with podcasts, I think for me personally, podcasts have to be a special case for me to pledge onto that Patreon. Yeah. I mean, I'll tell everyone now, the ACP isn't going to have a Patreon. If people ask for it, it's nice. It's nice to know that you pledge, but rather than that, when we do a charity drive, give money to charity, something like that. We're doing all right. We can.
Obviously, we get £1,000 a week from Pete.
I mean, Comic House are keeping us in the Class A's and the yachts. So we're doing all right. And when I say Class A, I mean like maths class, English class, and things like that. Nothing.
Have you got A levels?
So, what we're going to talk about this.
Anyone who's been in a phone box in central London knows what that means.
Oh, right, okay.
Oh, right, you were making one of your dirty jokes, were you?
Yeah, it meant anal.
Oh, really?
Smith and Jones jokes about, I took one of those postcards that said strict madam gives teacher discipline or something like that. He said, what did you get? I got an hour of Latin and double geography.
I'm sure the only time those cards ever get used is when you drunk put them in your mate's pocket in a pub.
Yeah.
We're back on postcards again.
Oh God, yeah. Let's get off this scandalous subject.
We were serious for a moment.
Yeah, wow, semi-serious. I mean, you can already tell, folks, this is going to be a fun one this week, because Eamonn's just as immature as us. However, he's very much on the ball and is a encyclopedia of information and fascinating insight on his own show, the Mega City Book Club, which have we all been part of now? Are we all?
No, I've yet to appear.
Still waiting for Dan.
Yeah.
Still. Oh, here we go. Still waiting for Dan, aren't we all? Eh?
Yeah. Yeah. Tony's been on it twice. You've been on it, Vince. We're trying to line something up for Dan.
Yeah, we'll sort something out.
Yeah, but it's fascinating though. I mean, those comics discussion shows, like the stuff you do as well, Tony. It's fascinating stuff. Like, it's great getting a chance to just sort of pick some books. Like when you asked me to come on board, and you were like, "Oh, let's talk about this one," but also let's talk about Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein. I was like, "Oh my God, this is going to be." The only problem was you having to edit it afterwards. But
it was fine.
I was a guest. I didn't care.
You get used to that, Vince. It's quite nice when you don't have to edit.
Yeah. It was like, right, I can be the problem this week.
It was. I mean, it's supposedly a British comics podcast, mainly 2000 AD.
Yeah.
But I thought, when am I going to get a chance to talk about Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein?
Yeah.
And I knew you were a big fan. And as I said on the time, you should do a deep dive on Bernie Wrightson on Tony's podcast as well.
Yeah, we.
But I mean, what an astonishing piece of artwork, or series of artworks that he did. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just. Also, with these sort of shows, when you pick a couple of things, going back to revisit the well is a joy, isn't it? Really, you realise, oh God, this is why I love this book, and it must be the same for you, Tony. Like when you
you can really look into it, man. You can really dig into it, and there's all these comics that we read as kids that we love, and sometimes we don't go back to them for decades, do we? And we think, oh, I missed that, Yeah. And there's a lot of panels that we read as a kid. Eamon did one on Fantastic Four issue recently, and it's something I read as a kid and devoured and reread. And there's just panels in there that are just forever stuck in my consciousness. Really.
And we had such a good time talking about Fantastic Four, and Jack Kirby and Stan Lee and the golden age of the '60s, Marvel Universe stuff. It was just, we had a great time on that one, Tony.
Yeah, we did. It was a really good one. Yeah. But that was a really good. And you and I, we joke about it, about the research we do, about it's become the Cold War between me and Eamon, where we almost try and outdo each other with the amount of research we do. And Eamon sends me some exhaustive list of everything he's read, and I'm like, right, I need to read these and add one. It's a bit like that.
Brilliant.
What led you to start the actual pod itself?
Well, I don't know, actually. I talked about this on Damien's podcast. I was coming up to a significant birthday, I think, and I'd had this daft idea to either start a podcast or get guitar lessons. So,
are you saying that podcasting is the new midlife crisis? Is that what
it was? My midlife crisis. Yeah, it was my midlife crisis, and I wanted to do something about 2000 AD and British comics, and I wanted to do something that was a bit positive about it, because mentioning no names, there are other podcasts that are not quite so positive these days. So it was basically just that. I think I'm coming up for 5 years. I'm about a year behind you guys, or are you? Or are you 7 years now?
We're coming up to 6.
Six, right? So I'm about a year behind you guys, and it was just, I thought I'd put out one a month. It's ended up at being one every 2 weeks. Occasionally bonus shows come out. Like you say, Vince, you have to do a bit of editing and you have to learn how to do it, don't you? You have to, I remember you had to go away and learn how to do it.
Yeah.
And then round up the other two.
What I do is I didn't have to learn to do it because I could just ring Vince all the time and ask him to do
this.
Yeah. Once you got the sort of the general idea of how the editing works, I mean, obviously, shout out to all the people that do all the bells and whistles to their shows and everything. But I think for the sort of shows that we do, it's once you get the function down, it's just a case of, I know how this works, I will use it like this. It's fine, and it's getting that format in your head and knowing how. I mean, I can't tell you when I was on your show, Eamon, and I said this to the guys afterwards. I have no idea what I talked about.
You always say that when you're on a podcast.
Yeah,
you said that to me before.
I think because you just get carried away having fun, like talking about comics and stuff. And then after the fact, I just think, did I say anything of any like real like quality? Was there any information? But so what? Listen, sometimes like when I listen back, it's like, oh right, yeah, I did make a little bit of sense there. Has there been times? Like, what is your editing process like? I mean, I keep it rough and ready on this show, unless Dan Butcher drops a C-bomb. What everyone hears
often. Of late.
I
can start if you want.
No, that's all right, Dan. Behave yourself. Otherwise, you get another postcard. No, but I mean, what you people hear every week is essentially what there's. You know, I've even stopped cutting out the pauses. Sometimes and the dead air, but do you like fine tune it? Do you really laser focus on stuff like that?
I'm trying to do less of that. I did initially, and I tried to do less of the sort of in detail editing. I do try to be kind to the guests, because I know when people listen back to themselves, the first thing they do is they listen to their own voice, don't they? And they listen to themselves saying and and
Yeah.
So I try to take out some of those, and be kind to my guests, and so on. Over the years, I think I've got quicker at it and done less of it. And hopefully, the audio. I was talking to Tony about this. I keep buying new equipment and trying upgrading the equipment. But hopefully the audio gets better. I've got a chap coming on in a couple of weeks, a music journalist from Glasgow called Jules Boyle, and he came on the show. I think you lost an episode, I think, didn't you, Vince? Famously, infamously, and I've had a couple of disasters. I've had this chap. He was on a few years ago, and I tinkered with the settings, and one of the devices didn't work, and the other one I tinkered at the settings, and I made a real cock of the audio. And I'm listening to it. Somebody said on the forums at the time, it sounded like he was sort of like speaking down an old-fashioned megaphone into the microphone. It was terrible. But anyway, and then there was the one I recorded with Damien and Helena at Lawless or Lawgiver. What was it? Yeah. It's now Lawless, isn't it?
It's Lawless now, isn't it? Yeah, so it might be Lawgiver. Yeah, is that the one where you didn't invite them to your hotel room or something?
That is exactly right.
Yes. Yeah.
I was too embarrassed because we were in an incredibly noisy bar, and I was recording it, at the table in the bar, and it was just too noisy. And of course, a few floors above us, I had a perfectly good hotel room I could have invited them up to. But I was just too embarrassed to say,
"Hello, they're dead hookers. They're not alive. The hookers were dead."
So we're all right. Yeah, that's right.
Right when I left them.
Yeah. As Damien said, you could at least buy us dinner first. But. Yeah, I mean, the editing process, it's a funny one, isn't it? I've just spent a couple of hours yesterday editing the next episode, which will go out next Sunday. And, it's a weird experience. I never thought I'd be spending so much time tinkering with audio settings and trying to improve the audio of the podcast. But you do, don't you?
Do you listen back to yourself? That's a question I think is interesting.
So I always think it's weird because when you're the host, you listen to yourself, you listen to it as you're doing it, you listen to yourself as you're editing it. Yeah. And then I do that thing where you listen to it on the car audio or on your headphones to get an idea of what it's going to actually sound like before you put it out. So I ended up listening to it 3 times. I sound like I'm sick of myself by the 3rd time I've heard it. So when it actually drops and comes out, no, I don't listen to it when it comes out.
Okay.
Because I'm fed up of myself by then.
I tend to do like recording a oneer. I do that because it's very simple the way I do it, and I don't often. If I'm kind of slapdash in my attitude towards most things in life, but I just sort of edit the bits I knew were going to be bad, and if it's one with a particularly dodgy bit of audio from the other end, I'll go all the way through it. But generally, I sort of go to the time notes that I made. But you listen to it all the way through as well, Vince, don't you? You said to me you do like a listen through or something.
I mean, I do it less and less as time goes on.
Right.
I definitely, because I'm making, I do make notes as the show goes on. Like, if there's any audio glitches or my coughs or anything like that. But now I'm a case of like, on the night, if I know it's gone well, I just know when it started, when it ended, any minor amends. I just put the intro on, I put the outro on, and it's done. I used to have like Eamonn did, I would listen to bits of it on the edit, and then I'd when I was walking into work, I'd have it on headphones just to make sure the levels were all right and how it came out.
Okay.
This is why there's been a couple of times when I've put episodes out and I've missed one of the musical inserts for when we've had a guest on.
Okay.
And I've accidentally not deleted it, and certainly Tom Curry at this Chucklehead, the fourth Beatle, he's messaged me and sort of said, "Oh, at this time there's a noise that happens," and that's when I immediately go, "Oh, cheers, mate," and I immediately delete it and re-upload it. So, but
I think during the process, there's a lot to be said about pressing record, and it's kind of why we missed that one. Is press record and don't worry about it, because if you're too worried about watching the levels going up and down, you're not concentrating on the flow of the conversation, which it can be quite nuanced. There's a lot of stuff to think about as you go along. Yeah,
and the whole aesthetic of this particular show as well. It's like it's just rough and ready. If it's rough around the edges, then it's rough around the edges, because that's kind of what small press is anyway. Most of the
we
time.
go back to mine when me and Dan did the episode when you didn't have any internet. That I bought about a month ago now, and Dan and I were full of asides. Every time we finished an interview, we were between bits. We were having a little chat, and I sent it to you. And I don't think your internet started till the Monday morning, and it was due to go out in a couple of hours. And I thought I was sweating it, thinking, "Oh God, I hope he notices the bit where I say that such and such is to see you next Tuesday." And I'd probably shag her. That sort of bits. The bits that we have to cut out. And so I did like a rough edit for you, didn't I? Just to ease my worries overnight. Yeah.
I guess if you did go into a podcast with someone and then later you fell out with them, they'd kept all the little bits. And done the expose, as it were.
I don't have enough storage space to keep all the blackmail stuff.
It's only the juiciest, the worst bits.
Yeah.
Have you had to cut some bad bits out before, Eamonn? Have you had someone? Because let's be fair to the 2000 AD community. As much as I'm part of it and I do quite like them, they can be a bit inflammatory at times, can't they?
I honestly can't remember what the bits were. I know I have cut out bits that I thought sounded just awful and terrible, and I got rid of them, again, to spare the guest's embarrassment.
Yeah.
But I can't, I never had to cut out anything of yours, Tony. But,
Thank you.
We've had, I can recall having guests saying, like, afterwards, "Oh, can you cut this out? I don't think I should have said that," which is fair enough.
Haven't we?
Yeah. It can be like, sometimes you might be in an NDA, and you sort of spout it off. Saying,
we've had one where we uploaded it, and the bloke's sort of creative partner he worked with asked if we could then take bits off, didn't we? So Vince had to take it down and take stuff out of it. You remember?
Yeah.
That was understandable.
Yeah.
I had an interview lined up with a guy who works at Rebellion.
All right.
About their reprographics department, because as you know, they own the sort of archive of IPC comics, but in order to reprint them, they don't have original art or print or photo plates or whatever. They're scanning the comics and then they're cleaning it up and getting rid of all the bleed through, and they've got some sort of weird AI sort of linked process that helps them do it. And I was going to do, I'm probably, this was an interview that never happened, because eventually Rebellion said, no, he's not available for interview. Because I think they thought I was going to try and get proprietary information from him, which I wasn't. I was just interested in,
the process. Yeah.
That's a big job. And I thought, the process of cleaning up this artwork to reprint it is interesting. I thought it'd be interesting anyway. But, because Vince, you and I talked about Death Wish, didn't we? Which was, they've done that. They've had to scan copies of Speed comic. And we talked about the brothers Vanyo, who did the art for that week in, week out. And then I remembered, because you've interviewed Barry Tomlinson, who wrote that.
Yeah.
And then you found out during the interview, Vince, that he wrote what's the name of the
Stormforce. He wrote Stormforce. Yeah. And I was so taken aback. I was so taken aback. I actually got a drink in my hand, actually. No, that was weird. Yeah, I was so taken aback that I didn't ask him any questions about it.
He was the nicest dude.
Yeah,
He was How nice was he? Yeah. And he's really positive online and friendly, and really interactive. Dude.
I'll pitch in my experience about like stuff. I've worked on a couple of magazines over the years for various different publishers, and one of the things, like, when you think, oh, why haven't they just kept backups or something of that? And I can remember working on a magazine for a couple of years, and they were working in Quark Express, the layout program, and then suddenly they changed over to like working on Adobe. Yeah. So they no longer had a license for Quark. So, but they'd kept all these CD backups, some of which were failing because of just that's the nature of CDs.
Yeah.
They can no longer access the files anymore because they couldn't. And you don't want to buy an entire license for Quark just for kind of that kind of stuff. Or it was just nuts. And you really think, oh, why aren't they on top of it? It can be really tricky just to archive stuff. I mean, as creators, we try and say like, oh, you got to back up your stuff in case like your machine fails. But I've had stuff I've backed up and I've gone back to later, and it's just it won't read it.
Yeah, it's funny, and that even applies to like phone camera technology and stuff. I was trying to watch a video I'd made of Ron Wilson drawing the Thing for me at New York Comic Con, and it took me ages because I'd filmed it on some stupid phone. It took me ages to find a program which would actually let me watch it.
Right.
Like, okay. Yeah, it does change, doesn't it? My VHS player and my floppy disk reader aren't very good anymore, So
floppy disk. That's
I still got my pager though.
Bloody hell.
I wish I'd hung on to mine just for posterity.
I never had a pager.
Because you're a youngster.
Yeah, damn right.
I feel like getting shot or stabbed when mine went off. It was so powerful.
Yeah.
Where did you put it down?
I hated my bleep.
Yeah.
Oh, you'd probably have the bleep where you'd have to go to a phone and make a phone call. They were the original ones, weren't they?
Yeah.
It used to go. I remember we had them where I used to work, and all the blokes in the office thought they were like geezers, and they'd all start chatting up the woman at the other end who'd pass the message on.
Oh yeah.
It'd be things like, "Hurry up, your tea's ready."
This one, like, this will test how old you are. It's apparently a sign of old age if you use this certain type of emoji in your communications. What emoji do you think it is?
Oh.
Wow.
Is it just the ordinary smiley face?
No.
What's the one that's meant to be a knob?
It's not aubergines, is it?
I'll spoil it. It's the thumbs up.
I use that all the time. Fucking hell.
Yeah, I know that came as a hammer blow to me because I was like, fucking, I use that all the time. That's like an indication of you being a bit past it and out of it. And I was like,
you just learned how to use that one.
If anyone could see like the ACP WhatsApp group, it's 95% thumbs up.
Thumbs up. That's our sort of interpersonal language, isn't it? We're saying, yeah, seen that. It's all good.
Yeah.
We have to change that now, chaps, because I can't bear of being uncool.
What's it going to be then? Is it going to be?
Don't know.
What's the one that used to be where that I think Jackie Chan did it, where you put your fingers together? It's like an OK sign. You can't do that anymore now, either, can you?
No.
Because that's like, isn't that white power or something? Does that mean now? Yeah.
Oh, what?
Oh, it's a minefield, isn't it?
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, it's like the OK sign, and you make the O and then the K with your fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to do the human emoji in the office. So I said, rather than send emojis, just take a picture of me doing something, and it would be me putting a finger through a donut or something like that.
We might have gone off topic,
You think?
I mean, did we have a topic?
Well, one thing we mentioned at the start of the show before we start recording was how can we put this? It was Alan Moore, Frank Miller popping up in a comic. Should we bring the ATG guns to bear on this?
Let's. Yeah, because what is there's a is it a Watchmen issue? Is that what it is?
Rorschach, isn't it?
Rorschach. Yeah. Thing is, I have no context.
I've not read it. I read the first issue, and I keep meaning to go back to it, and I haven't done it yet.
I've literally only seen the page that has become the internet, whatever, the trend or whatever. And is it just that page? Is it just that one scene?
Don't know.
Frank Miller's in it, isn't it? And a couple of the characters from Watchmen are talking to him.
Yeah, I think they go back. They go and speak to him as like, how like an author self-insert, but like obviously Tom Kenning's popped him in there, and there was talk of the fact that he's sort of like it's not very favourable to Frank Miller, the page.
Isn't it? Right. Okay.
I don't think it is. I could be completely wrong there, but it was harking back to the fact that there's that panel where Tom King and Frank Miller are on discussing Batman, and Frank Miller shot down Tom
It got a bit
King's.
awkward feeling,
Yeah.
didn't it? Yeah, it felt awkward. Yeah. I have to say, so it was a panel from years ago, at least a couple of years ago. I'm going to say 2017, even something, and it was like the Batman panel, and they had a few people on there, and Frank Miller was sat next to Tom King, and it wasn't argumentative, really, was it? It's just thought Tom King would say something, and Frank Miller would go, no, that's not right, and then say what he thought was right. You know, I don't know how either of the two men feel about it. It felt a little awkward, but I'm not sure if I was watching it under the lens of just having read a page of a Rorschach comic, you know.
Yeah, I did. I was sort of a couple of things, and it's like I might like that interaction, and then the other day I just like, it's just creators offering up their different opinions. But when you look at under the lens of, he's taken umbrage at this, maybe did. I don't know.
Because when I looked at it, like it I didn't really get the context of the Tom King Frank Miller thing. I mean the art's very strange anyway, and I think what took me out of it is when comics decide to be meta. Let's just talk about that rather than any sort of like I don't have skin in the game when it comes
exactly.
to
me neither.
Whatever this debate that the internet so-called journalism, which is laughable, all the clickbait that's made out of it, we don't care about all that.
No.
But the subject for me when I saw that page was, at first I was like, is that Frank Miller? And I only knew that for certain, really, because I had just watched a brilliant little interview between Robert Kirkman talking to Frank Miller about their comics.
Which you'd sent us that morning. Yeah.
Which is great. I do like listening to Robert Kirkman talk about comics. It seems like he genuinely talks about comics.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It did. I mean, the art itself looks a little bit like Sid Haig from House of a Thousand Corpses. But
you're right.
Yeah, it does. Well, but mind you, he doesn't look dissimilar to him in real life, does he? I suppose. Yeah.
Does it name the character as Frank Miller?
Yeah.
Yes, it
does.
Yes. Some of the dialogue. How do you say it?
Yeah.
Rorschach.
Rorschach.
Yeah.
He says, "Frank, good to see you. Been some time." And another character says, "Hello, Mr. Miller." Spoilers, by the way. This is just a page. I don't know what the rest of the book's like, so go for your life. It's such an honour to meet you. I read Dark Fife over and over again. I think it's just a masterpiece. It's totally changed everything. Blah. I know you probably don't want to be called a legend because I think that implies you're done. And I'm sorry, sir. But I'm sorry, sir. You are a legend. And I don't. More to the point, I don't know what context. Please tell us if there's context to this scene, or whether it's just a page dropped in. Because if it's just a page dropped in, what's the point of it?
There's got to be more to it, surely, isn't there?
Got to be, yeah.
The only thing I found weird about it is that it was Frank Miller and not Alan Moore.
Yeah, I was thinking, why isn't
or
Alan
some
Moore?
kind of parallel of Alan Moore, or even Dave Gibbons,
Yeah, because Frank Miller hasn't had anything to do with Watchmen at all, has he?
No,
he didn't do any variant covers, did he, for anything for before? No, I can't think of anything.
Yeah.
I think so.
I really don't get that.
So that may be what draws in there's something maybe behind this page, but
so it's a fictional Frank Miller who's written a comic called The Dark Fife.
Yep.
Not The Dark Knight, and he pops up in Rorschach, written by Tom King.
And and he thinks they're going to kill him.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But everyone's conspiracy theorying, saying this is because they fell out on a panel, which is probably the only bit of YouTube they can find of the two talking. I'm sure they've spoken out otherwise,
Yeah.
Seems a bit of a stretch, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that didn't happen, but yeah.
Are you saying that the internet is blowing things out of proportion, Dan? Surely not.
Get our last week's guest, Perch. He put a video out, and for 2021 was it, or 2020? He tried to record all the comic outrages on Twitter, and I think he did it for 2 or 3 months. And then he was just like, "This is."
I don't think if you was that was it. I think it was It
was absolutely doing, because every day it was a new drama, and nothing changed, nothing happened.
There must be a video coming soon about this from him, I'd imagine. Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah.
But in terms of, how do you feel about like inserting real life comic creators in these sort of meta ways into comic book stories? I'm not a fan personally.
No.
I don't I think it takes me out of the moment, if you know what I mean. That sort of.
Yeah, it's horses for courses with me. In general terms, I'm going to agree with you. And I said I don't really want Bill Finger turning up in Batman, and I don't, you know.
Do you think it's more like the superhero genre and all of these classic superhero creators seeing a Batman talk to a real life creator is sort of like
we get it a bit in the horror genre as well, don't we? I think we get it a lot in, you know, oh, here comes Lieutenant Carpenter. I don't really want that.
Yeah.
But
we were really cross with that dark, Black Label Hellblazer.
Oh yeah,
every other name was a reference to somebody who'd drawn or written Hellblazer, and John Constantine in the
Dylan's
past.
Bar and all this.
Dylan's
sort of
Bar, yeah.
And that was clearly by someone who'd never been to England.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Nothing like it. Yeah. I think sometimes if it's something like What If or Mad Magazine, or I'm fine with it in those.
Yeah,
ones.
that's fine.
You know, there's that satirical edge to it, and you expect it, but there is. Yeah, it depends how it's done.
Yeah, I find whenever I've seen examples of it, it's most noticeable in the dialogue or whatever happens from the character that the book is about. Do you know what I mean? Never mind this, the creator or whatever who's been dropped into this book. It's the interaction between the character and that creator, which doesn't feel genuine. It always feels like this is the voice of the writer.
Yeah.
This is not the voice of the said character. It always sort of changes. I
wonder how many people who read Rorschach. I mean, I hope lots of people read it, but how many people actually know what Frank Miller looks like?
Mm.
You know,
maybe
some of them don't even know who he is.
Isn't there an Animal Man one where he interacts?
Yeah, and that's kind. I don't
Grant
mind
Morrison turns up in it himself, doesn't he?
But that's kind of the theme of the whole book,
because the whole book was really crazy. I mean, the classic sort of Looney Tunes, Wile E. Coyote sort of like, that messed. So many different crazy things happened on that series. Isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Stan and Jack turned up in the background and in the foreground of Fantastic Four. If you look at some of the X-Men issues, you've got Claremont and Byrne turning up, having a conversation with people. It does happen.
Yeah,
Funky Flashman was based on Stan Lee, wasn't he?
House Roy. Yeah.
Because this is a Watchmen spin-off, Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons put Joe Orlando in Watchmen in the back matter, didn't they? Because they turned him into a writer of pirate comics.
Okay.
Okay.
And the Black Freighter, was it Black Freighter?
That's it. Tales from the Black Freighter. Yeah.
I think it depends when it is. This just seemed a bit stark and bold and I did enjoy the first issue, but it was one of the ones I thought I'm going to go to trade on this one. I think so. I haven't caught up yet.
I might get some grief off of Stephen King fans, but in the Gunslinger series, it kind of petered off at the end. There's large bits where like the main character interacts with Stephen King, and I was just like, don't like this. Really don't like this, but it's your book.
I mean, this whole sort of the meta vein has been part of comics since time immemorial, really, hasn't it? It's always been there, and if you like that kind of thing, I always think sometimes, for me, it's a cheap pop, if that makes sense. It's you get
sometimes it's paying homage where homage is due, I think, and so I think it depends on how it's done, man. I think you're right. Sometimes it just comes a bit as like, oh. All right, they're just trying to be clever again. Who in the world really knows who that person is? We hope would read this comic after picking it up, in a shop.
Yeah. I think partly with this particular one that's become sort of mini infamous is the fact that a good third of the page is a widescreen panel of just Frank Miller, just literally just opening the door.
Oh, looking quite surprised. Yeah,
looking surprised.
Yeah.
So
they got his face good. Well, I think he. It looks, yeah. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. I hate to move it onto a movie or a TV, but I won't do it again. But the one that I was thinking is, if you watch Sons of Anarchy, they keep going to the prison to meet this bloke who's who's the guy who started their chapter or whatever it was, and that's actually Sonny Barger, who's the guy who actually created the Hells Angels. And to me, I thought, well, that gives an interesting aspect to it, because I don't think the Hells Angels are particularly fond of people putting them on film and revealing their secrets and stuff. And even though I know it was called a different name, but maybe they had to get him on board. Do you know what I mean? There's a bit of that going on sometimes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
And which leads on to another subject, which we're about to talk about next.
Yes. We're being oddly topical this week. Is your influence, Eamon? We're being.
What did I do?
That's the sort of response we have. If the police ask. No. No. This. There was another thing this week that cropped up online. Ed Brubaker, talking about the Winter Soldier. And I need to find the link now because he wasn't sort of being down.
He was on Kevin Smith's podcast.
Was it on the Kevin Smith podcast? That's
he turned up on the Kevin Smith podcast and interviewed, and he did say that he gets more money in residuals from his brief appearance in the film Captain America: Winter Soldier than he does for creating the Winter Soldier storyline with Steve Epting.
That's it.
So his 30 seconds on screen, because I think he's in the scene where they're mind wiping the Winter Soldier. Does he get a line? Again.
Does he get a line? I think he might do.
He might get a line.
Yeah.
And Robert Redford turns to him and says, "Well, just wipe him and reset him or something," isn't it? It's that scene. Yeah.
Right.
And he gets more money for that than he did for creating the character in the comics.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this, of course, when this we were sharing this on our WhatsApp. Naturally, the conversation went backwards and forwards. We were just like, "Oh, right." And I thought it brought up quite an interesting topic.
Tom brought it up, didn't he? It was on the one with Tom, wasn't it?
That's
Yeah.
And it was a very interesting topic in terms of not necessarily this specific case. I think this specific case could then be a conversation of its own, because, for instance, Ed Brubaker never claims that he created Bucky. But however, the storylines and the things that this intellectual IP that he's created around like the Winter Soldier and stuff and that format has obviously gone on to make, well, I don't know, we've got a Disney Plus TV series at the moment, so it's making a bit of money for them. And I found that to be interesting. I mean, I think with those Marvel deals, that series came out how many years ago? 15 years ago, Tony? When was the Winter?
Yeah, it's got to be.
2005.
Yeah, it's around that, isn't it? And that was 2005. That was just as the cinematic universe was just starting to kick off, was it? I believe. But notoriously, Disney and Marvel, with their contracts and everything, they don't. You got to watch your contracts, haven't you? Really, I think when it comes to this stuff, I think if you write like an X-Men character, you create an X-Men character. It's not your character.
Yeah.
It's an interesting line, isn't it? It's what do you deserve years down the line, and something Eamon and I talked about around Kirby. It's very relevant, and Joe Simon and Bill Finger, and there's a lot of people it's very relevant around, isn't there?
Yeah.
You get stuff like artist resale rights on works of art. That doesn't exist really for like comic creators and stuff. And if you come up with an idea or a concept and it keeps on getting reused over and over, are you not in any way entitled to some money for that? And then people say it goes back to the contract, because if you didn't make that up in your contract, you can't it can't be enforced. It's a tricky one, because I can see both sides of it. Because what's to stop someone coming back like 20 years after they've done a bit of work saying, "Oh, actually, that's done a lot better than I thought it would." You thought it would.
It's a funny one.
Money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and how long does that last for?
Yeah.
I mean, Liefeld's an example of that, isn't he? But the thing is like, so what's the idea that he brought back Bucky? Well, he wasn't the first person to do that.
Right.
That you look at is it the Legion of Doom story? I can't remember the name of it now. The Avengers story, and there was a second Bucky in the 50s, and all this sort of thing. And Bucky had been brought back. There'd been a new Bucky, as we are now seeing in the Winter Soldier and Falcon series, aren't we?
Yeah.
But he, I don't know. But like his storyline was the Winter Soldier and all of that, wasn't it? So that.
It wasn't exactly the movie, though, was it?
I plead ignorance because I haven't read. Shame on me.
Yeah.
I haven't read the original stuff.
But is it then that the idea that you bring back someone and unice them to be an assassin, and then put them back into deep freeze. Now, I don't know, but that's got to have been used somewhere before as well, isn't it? I don't know.
Potentially,
how
I
far
don't
do you
know.
go with what an idea is?
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see how much the family of Joe Simon and Jack Kirby are getting for it.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of this time, I think as audience members, we like seeing the names in the credits, don't we? I mean, when we see a comic creator there, we're like, oh, that's nice that they've name checked them. But sometimes that's probably all it is. Do you know what I mean? It's just sort of
it could well be that.
Anecdotally, I hear that DC are better, aren't they?
Yes, I've heard that.
That's the story we hear. That even when someone appears briefly in Legends of Tomorrow, someone gets a check.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
That going on, I think.
I think it's also down to the individual creators, isn't it? I mean, most of them, like a Jonathan Hickman, he knows that he makes more money from his Image stuff than he does with his Marvel stuff. He's just, I don't know, with the stuff he's doing.
But it's the Kirkman Manifesto.
Yeah.
It was so prophetic, wasn't it? It's now something that's just ingrained in us. It's something we all ask about now because the reason that people left Marvel and DC in the early 2000s was partly for that Kirkman Manifesto thing. Well, make your bones at Marvel and DC, then go off and do your own stories because you're going to make more money out of it. But then again, look at some of the Image books now and the sales numbers on them. Some of them are going back to Marvel and DC again.
Yeah.
And Kirkman's, not Kirkman, Hickman's one of them, isn't he?
Yeah.
In a way.
It's, even Jim Lee, they all went back. Well, not all of them went back, but they went back briefly, didn't they?
McFarlane's the only one who hasn't been back, is that right?
Yeah, and he never will.
No.
He don't give a fuck, that place.
What's the situation at 2000 AD? Do you know, Eamon? Because I know that's a whole other ballgame, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I think it's the same. It's the same story for all of these comic companies. Is that at some point they don't seem to do the right thing because I mean, yesterday I got my subscriber copy of 2000 AD, which has got, I think, the last ever Slain story in it by Pat Mills. Saying that.
Yeah, I did as well. Yeah, it's a real shame, and possibly the last 2000 AD story he's written for a while.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Pat's, walking away from 2000 AD. I mean, you guys know Pat well.
Yeah, we got the Jode Pineapple story, which apparently, if it ever gets finished.
Oh, right, the one that Simon Bisley's
been doing for
not drawing.
That's yeah. We might get that, but other than that, I think pretty much he's not working on anything at the moment. Yeah.
And of course, and he had that quite public falling out with 2000 AD about the reprint money for the Horned God, which they used as a lost leader on the 2000 AD Ultimate Collection hardbacks when it came out. So I think you could buy that for 99p or something, or £1.99 or something. Yeah. And he shared, I think, the check he'd got for that, him and Simon Bisley, and it was some pitiful amount, wasn't it, Tony?
I think, wasn't it like £150 or something?
Something like that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so the arrangement is that he gets, obviously they get whatever it is, 5%. I'm not, to be fair, don't write that down, but that's what possibly. But obviously you get 5% of a $10.99 book. But if when they started these things, they put the first issue out as I'll buy this series. This one's only 99p, or it's $1.99. And of course he still gets 5% of just that, and it sold well. It sold better than the rest of the other books. But he still only gets, say, whatever it is, 5% of 99p.
Yeah. So, I mean, we talked about this with Marvel and Kirby. And, of course, Marvel they've had their arms twisted up behind their back a few times over the years. I was reading about Bill Mantlo and Rocket Raccoon and all that, and how they'd come and arranged a screening of the first Guardians of the Galaxy in his, I wouldn't say hospital room, but he's in long-term care. He got knocked down. Yeah. But I think they eventually will make ex gratia payments, which are all covered by a non-disclosure agreement. And Ed Brubaker, I presume he's not getting any money for the new TV series, then, is he?
I'm guessing not. Yeah. There's fun enough. I talked with Tom about Box Office Poison this week. And in that, they do an homage to the Kirby situation with a character they made up called Ed Flavor, and about the deal he does.
That's a great name as well.
Yeah, I know. And it follows the line of what was happening to Kirby at the time. It's quite an interesting read because that has a non-disclosure amount. That has agreement to participate in future projects, all that sort of thing.
Yeah. And certainly there's you know, how many times have we seen on the Facebook post or the Twitter post or whatever, people going, look at this terrible a publisher who suggesting you pay them to give them your book or something like that, and you know, this stuff is across the board. There's always going to be people doing this, and I think sometimes, because they're the bigger companies, or the other bigger companies, people seem to forget that these bigger companies sometimes, I mean, the wider readership sometimes forgets that these bigger companies doing it, but because they're bigger companies, I think most of the time they care less, because the money, you know, it's like, well, we don't care. It's product. You signed to give us product, so
but it's this the age-old thing of like, I'm gonna speak up for the corporates, which is fucking so against me it's untrue. You got to be wary of like what you're signing up as a contract.
Yeah.
And if the contract says we pay you for X amount of money for X amount of work and we own this, that's what happens. You can't say, oh yeah, I'll do it for £5 an hour, and then like a year down the line saying, well, they treat me like a CUNT. They was only giving me £5 an hour. It's like, well, you fucking signed up for that. You didn't have to.
The work for hire thing is what you're saying.
Yeah.
If you're going in, you're not going into that blind, are you?
Yeah. No.
But you do the balance for that, mate, is you do the right thing, I think, and I see what you're saying. I
mean, you can't. It's hard because if the people like back in the day when they were doing this, obviously it was a different situation. But if you was doing if I was working as an illustrator for a comic book or an illustrator in a comic book now, and I was said, well, they're going to pay you X amount of money to do this book, Dan, and I went, yeah, fine. And then a few months after I've done all the work and got paid, it goes, well, I was really underpaid for that. Well, that's all on me.
Yeah.
It's all on me. I've got nothing. They've got no comeback.
Sometimes with the big deals as well, like, you know, you could sort of say, like, when you sell your soul to the devil, you've got to make sure you read the small print, because that's where sometimes, you know, creators, because the enthusiasm of doing this stuff. I mean, who wouldn't want to do this kind of work? But I think in this day and age, you need to know, if I'm going to work for these people, it's going to be like this, and that's why sometimes it's a stepping stone for your own individual stuff to have more behind it. You know, with some of these creators that we know and we talk about that are doing these independence books, that are probably getting their own movie deals or TV series deals or whatever, you know, where do we first hear about them? Sometimes it's because they did work for DC and Marvel. And you know,
the landscape's changing, and I think the landscape changes so much we can't keep track of it, and times are not comparable, are they? I think.
Yeah.
And the independent scene is bigger than ever, so it's becoming more of a sea rather than a river. The independent scene, so it's harder. Sometimes it's a lot harder to spot the real quality voices, and we say that as being an indie comic, a small press.
When the Monster Spotters Club money comes in, Vince, we're going to be richer than Rockefeller, mate.
I mean, hang on, we'll make money. That was
I'd be richer than Rockefeller anyway, because I'd do some window cleaning on the side.
Yeah,
we've done this discussion about like not getting paid for stuff, and if you think like working with, you're an artist or writing, think about working with the other person, you're not going to get paid for it, but it may lead to certain other things. Maybe that's something you can consider. It's like
stand to you, man. Nobody can tell you what to do.
Yeah. You shouldn't just say I'm not going to work on that, because that's more of a collaboration I'm talking about there.
Yeah,
but I'd be very wary. There's so many people say, we'll do this 5-page script and I'll pitch it to Image, and it's like, well, you got to do your fucking due diligence. Have you done this before? What other comic books have you worked on? Because I'm not taking some like.
I was going to say I'm willing to write the Avengers for a packet of peanuts and a hand job, but I think that's more than they actually get these days. So I don't know if it's.
Are you locked in for the peanuts?
It's not in the contract.
I've got an anecdote about peanuts. In the story, there was a man at the zoo. It's not a joke; it's a real story told by a zookeeper. And
it must be true.
They're by the monkey enclosure, and like the guy was like, "I can't see any of the monkeys." And went, "They're probably inside having sex." Monkeys, and he said, would they come out if I threw them some peanuts? She said, would you?
No matter how much you like peanuts.
Oh dear. I mean monkey. Well done, Dan. You derailed it. Well done.
Nice work.
Yeah, mark your bingo card, folks.
Yeah.
No, I think
Monkey sex.
That's the name of this episode. No, I think that is, like I say, Tony, the landscape's changed, and I mean we've talked about it from a few different sort of angles there, and yes, the creatives have got to be wary of what they're getting into and what they're signing up for. But also, comics unfortunately has a long history of publishers screwing over people that are giving them stuff that they're now making billions off. It's a sad state of affairs. A lot of the big names, these classic creators, like the Kirbys, etc. More people should know them because of rather than just a name at the end of the credits. And just to finish this topic, in the Skype chat, Tony's just posted a picture of monkeys having sex.
And I'm going to share my age by giving a thumbs up. There you go.
Oh dear,
that's an unusual tips ad.
Oh my God.
You worry about the tail, wouldn't you? What do you do with the tail? Yeah.
What? No,
that will come in later on in my review.
Tony, it's monkeys having sex. It's not people having sex with monkeys. Right. Anyway, now you learn many things on this show. Like we say every week, you learn not to listen to this show, but you keep coming back.
Yeah.
But also occasionally, and we got a little bit of time to discuss this. I mean, Eamonn, we're having too much fun talking to you, man.
Oh dear. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Oh dear.
If I throw out some peanuts, will you stop?
No, I'll give him your address.
Yeah. Then you'll get a postcard.
Graham Peanut. Yeah.
Graham Peanut. But also, one of the things we wanted to talk about was and dare we be highbrow or fairly intellect? No, we won't be intellectual.
Give it a go.
I don't want to make promises I can't keep. But one thing about Eamonn that we wanted to discuss a little bit. Am I right in saying, Eamonn, you're moving into a bit of into comic studies a little bit? Did this happen?
Yeah, I'm going back to university. It's very exciting.
That is awesome.
I'm going to be a student.
Oh God!
I know.
Do you?
But as
I say, normally we record when I record with Eamonn at 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. But if you're a student, I'll have to wait till about 2, won't I?
Yeah, you will. I won't be up. Yeah.
That's him getting up early.
Yeah. But what are you actually studying?
So, because I'm ancient, I'm so old that I use the thumbs up emoji all the time. That I'm retiring from the NHS in September, and then my family have been on at me and saying, well, you should, instead of just batting on about comics all the time to anybody who'd listen, you should study it. So I had a look around, and I live in the east of England, and the University of East Anglia in Norwich do a 1-year masters in comic studies, and they're in their first year. It's only just started. They're in the first year of it now. And I applied for it, and blimey, they let me in. I think the bit where I said I was self-funding and I could afford it, I think that was the bit that swung it for me. I think they said, "Oh yeah, great, yeah, he's in." But yeah, so at the end of September, I start doing a 1-year masters in comic studies, and I'm going to be studying comics, and I'm going to be, as Tony and I have joked, I mean, they're going to be wanting me to talk about autobiographical comics and Fun Home, and I'm going to be saying, but have you read Fantastic 451?
Yes. What about Meltdown Man?
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's talk about Swamp Thing. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to study comics for a year. Not producing comics or learning how to write or art, although there are courses for those options, around the country. And I shared a list that John Freeman had put together on Down the Tubes with you guys, and I'll put that link on your the Awesome Comics Talk Facebook page when this comes out. But yeah, so it's not about producing comics; it's just about studying comics. And there's various modules that I'll have to do during the year, and then I'll have to do a dissertation at the end, which is going to be something to do with monkeys, peanuts, and thumbs up emojis, I think.
But this, I mean, a course like this, I'm sorry, it was invisible in my time. I wouldn't have thought that something like this would exist. I mean, does it speak to where the medium is in the? Why do you think that these courses are popping up more?
Well, I mean, Tony, and you guys talked about this at various points in the past. If you mention to somebody that you were a grown adult human person who read comic books, they would look at you like you were some form of, you should be on a register somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But of course, now that they are billion-dollar enterprises and all popular culture seems to have started in a comic book somewhere, it's become, I think, a subject of academic interest, and it's becoming more and more. I mean, certainly in America, there's several universities where you can study comics. Over here, I think it's starting to take off. Dundee, typically, the home of British comics, Dundee were probably first, I gather, because they had a master's, or they do have a master's in comics and graphic novels.
Yeah, I think Dave Robertson's done it, hasn't he? I think he's done it. I think so.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so that UEA started. There's a lady called Dr. Julia Round, who's a comics academic from Bournemouth University, who's written a fantastic couple of books about Misty, which again, Pat Mills comics. So, and I've had her on the Mega City Book Club podcast a couple of times, and she's fantastic. So, there is academic work being done about analysing comics and studying them and treating them in the manner that we'd like them to be treated, as serious literature, which is, they're full of all the stuff that you guys talk about every week about, I don't know, the emotional impact of comics, the
history
the power,
as well. Yeah.
The history,
You have to dig a little bit sometimes, I think, but there is stuff out there that's worth reading. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole subject of creator rights, which we've just been talking about, is fascinating.
Yeah.
And, as you guys say, if we were young, so young that we didn't use the thumbs up emoji, and Marvel offered us a gig writing something, we probably would be so excited that we wouldn't read the contract in great detail.
Yeah.
And then if that something turned out not to just be a 6-issue miniseries that everybody forgot about, but actually turned into a $1 billion movie thing, you'd be thinking, well, hang on a minute,
Yeah. And then, I think when you're studying these things as well, like take a subject like that, you're doing more than just looking at the online Comics Beat article that you just read. You are researching, you are looking into it, you're definitely looking at, I remember listening to a podcast. Oh, what podcast was it? A while ago. It might have been Word Balloon, actually.
Okay.
Talking about the Ghost Rider. I think it was a lawyer talking about the. Remember the Ghost Rider creator was trying to.
Yeah, because
yes.
he sued Marvel for back pay for the use of Ghost Rider in the movies and stuff like that, and they countersued him by saying, "Hang on a minute, you've been selling prints and." Fan made stuff at your table. Yeah,
we've not said anything about that.
Yeah,
so if you come after us for that, we'll come after you for
you. Yeah. The stuff
seems a bit much.
But, but once again, on that podcast episode, there was someone that knew about the law that was talking about it not from a I have skin in the game. It was more a case of like, look, this is why this is how it's happening. This is what's happening, which I think when it comes to a lot of like journalism or articles that we read, there's always a voice, there's always an opinion. Sometimes it's not always fact, it's opinion, which is a very different thing.
Neil Adams is interesting about that. Neil Adams, as much as Neil, and anyone's met him, he's a super nice guy, but he does have some strange ideas about the shape of the Earth and other things.
Yeah,
he was the spearhead of getting. The Superman creators, Bill Finger, all these people. He was really at the spearhead of sorting out payments to people. Yeah, should have come their way. That's another interesting one.
Isn't there something about the makers of Predator coming after the rights for that character?
They're trying to get it back. Yeah, now I think it's after 25 years you can stop them making stuff, I think.
Okay.
It works a little differently with.
That's a shame. I was looking forward to the Squirrel Girl Predator crossover that Marvel had.
Oh, don't get me started on the fucking Marvel. Right, okay. Perhaps I'll get Greg Land to do it. And my head will explode. But I mean, Eamonn, you love that sort of like researching and finding out about the history. What draws you to this, the sort of academic side of comics, which people don't necessarily think of when they think of comics, but what draws you to it?
Well, I think Tony and I we have great fun looking up the history of stuff and doing deep dives on certain creators. And actually Tony, because I know it's his day job now. He's doing research, isn't it, Tony? I think.
Yeah, you're right.
And Tony's taught me a lot about it just when I popped up as a guest on Never Iron Anything. That, looking into the back matter and the sort of history of these comics and the process, how they're created and the creators and what they were doing at the time. Somebody like, when we talked about Bill Waterston on Calvin and Hobbes, who's got this absolutely pure artistic integrity. He doesn't want the money. He doesn't want the millions. And so on. So I think, I find all that stuff absolutely fascinating. And then if we look even closer at what the form of storytelling and what it's doing, how it's telling the story in both word and image, I think it is worthy of academic analysis. Julia Round's work on like panel structures in Misty, where unusually for a girls' comic, they got very sort of, revolutionary with panel layouts, and they really did sort of exciting things. It wasn't just a grid anymore. Or it broke out, and these scary stories would break off the page. So I think that stuff is fascinating to look at. And I don't know, sometimes you just read this stuff and you think, oh, yeah, I never thought of it that way. But, it is just the stuff that we love, telling stories in word and image, and it's just
I find it fascinating.
Fantastic Four.
I mean, that one was like an ideal one, the Fantastic Four Jack Kirby one, because there's so much out there. You could read books all year on that guy, on those that era, those characters. But with the internet now, there's stuff that for every subject I've gone to research, or Eamonn and I have gone to research, there's loads out there, and just even for quite niche things. And the thing is, you don't have to go to the British Library and go through the archives anymore, or spend lots of money on eBay. It's all out there online. There's interviews, there's videos. At the moment, I'm listening to a talking book on Audible called Comic Shop by Dan Guarino, and it's all about the origins of comic conventions and comic shops, and it's absolutely fucking fascinating. But also one of the great research tools is podcasts. Yeah, and
definitely.
I mean, we said it before that we talked about it last week before we went on air, guys. But people have used us as research for podcast for their research, because we've interviewed so many creators now, interesting and long-standing creators, and you can go back and hear what they said. And I did one on Alex Robinson on Friday with Thomas Stewart, and there's loads of stuff. I just went back and listened to the interviews with him, and there's loads of stuff that you don't find on the Lambeck website. You don't find it on their Wikipedia. You don't find it on the Comic Book Resources advert, interviews or articles. But he'll say, and you go, wow, I never thought of that. There's so much out there, and it's so fascinating to build a picture up.
And sometimes, like whenever you watch a documentary, if you're like us, you love finding a documentary about a comic series, and sometimes I watch these documentaries about comics that I haven't even read the comics, but then I want to read them afterwards.
Same with the podcast, man. Yeah, exactly same.
And it's usually the same if you're starting from as soon as you start that podcast, as soon as you start that documentary that is about just say Captain America. It doesn't say Captain America was created. It will normally sort of say, the year is 19 such and such. The world is like this. This is what's happening. And there's always a story behind everything. Immediately it puts you in a point of like, this isn't necessarily just about the comics. There was a world that created the creators that made these comics. Do you know what I mean? There's so much to learn about, whether it be the creators or sometimes just the medium itself. I think it's... I'm going to be biased, but I think there's so many layers to comics. I think it's infinite how much you could look into, isn't it? Really, depending on.
Even the layers, to the level we do on here, guys, we dig in, don't we? We really do. So, if we, for example, the Kirby episode we did or stuff, we were reading and talking about stuff, and listening to podcasts and swapping stuff. I mean, the Kirby one, I did recently with Eamonn is great because it's even a podcast that's a dramatized history of his life in comics.
Yeah.
It's like really good. Yeah.
And I, for that episode, I went back and listened to the ACP, your guys' Kirby episode and your Stanley episode. And then Jim Campbell, who you know, is coming up on my podcast in a month or two, going to teach me about lettering, the history of lettering in comics and British comics. Okay. And, for preparation for that, I've listened to his episode that he did with you guys about lettering.
Okay.
So, I'm telling you, it's quite right. Podcasts now, this readily available.
And also, I think if you do a podcast as well, it benefits you to, just say you've got a guest coming on and it's quite a big guest, you obviously want to, you want to ask the question, you want to get the information. Do listen to where they've been elsewhere, because also you will know, are we covering the same ground that everyone else normally does? Why don't we ask them about this? Which I haven't.
I hate podcasts where they just start and they say, "Oh, today we're going to talk about Spider-Man," and nobody's done any research, and it just drives me up the wall.
I find sometimes with certain guests, and certainly there's been bigger creators on this show that I haven't necessarily known about until they sort of came on. But my responsibility when they're on is like, I want to know.
But one of us normally takes the lead, don't they? For people who come on. So, like when Mike Barron came on, I knew all about Mike Barron because I'd sorted it out. And then, for example, when different ones occur to different ones of us, don't they? We book different guests, and it's kind of on the heads of the person who booked them to be the one who knows about them. If you see what I mean?
You sort of take the lead in sort of.
Yeah, and also sometimes, that's what wins me over. Sometimes I think I don't know as much about this. Then I ask them about it, and then 99% I immediately become a fan, and I'm away then. Adding to that Amazon bloody wish list.
You have a few creators on, don't you, Eamonn?
Not too many. Chris Weston's been on, James Beattie. I did Mike Collins recently. About that Apollo book he did, and Mike Collins is great. Such a.
I have to say, I really like Mike, and I've interviewed him at panels and stuff, and we invited him on here, and he said, "Oh yeah, sounds good." And then he said, "Could you send us just an episode so I can have a listen?" And he never got back to it.
We might have to.
Episode did you send?
Yeah, we might have to send him a better episode. Maybe not Jeffrey Peanut and the Monkeys of Doom. Maybe we don't send him this one.
But he's super nice. Normally, I wonder what he thinks of me.
Yeah. In fact, I think at the last True Believers, we had breakfast with him.
Right. Yeah, I interviewed him at the previous True Believers. That's the one. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. I think you were sat next to me, Dan. Do you remember that? No, you were drunk.
You were staring at that cosplayer again.
At breakfast, yeah.
The previous one was the one where we didn't think you were going to make it, and you had all the new comics. Do you remember? And it had been snowing. We thought you'd been snowed in.
My brain has ignored that, has blocked that out because
that's too stressful.
I had a moment.
Me and Dan had breakfast with a cosplayer. Do you remember, Dan?
I do, yeah. Her name is Stephanie Flinders.
There you go. Very good.
Hello, Stephanie.
Because she was having breakfast with us, and then she came up to us later in the day and started talking to me.
I didn't know who it was. Yeah.
Who is this person? And I was like, suddenly this dropped. It's Stephanie. I was talking to her at breakfast.
I just want to say on the record that Dan didn't say that out loud. Who is this person?
So who is this person I roared in my head?
Don't make eye contact.
Yeah. No. Brilliant though. Stephanie, I think Stephanie was at the last True Believers as well, helping out with True Believers.
I think she
actually,
she gave a talk on Cosplan, I believe.
Yeah. Keep up the good work.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good work, Stephanie.
We make friends. We make friends everywhere and enemies.
Good.
That'll be a different episode.
Yeah.
So, how are you preparing for this course then, Eamonn?
So, I've bought some academic. I bought some textbooks, which are very expensive.
Stationery. You got your pencil case.
Yeah. Very expensive. I'm reading the book by the course organizer, and I'm doing that thing where I read a chapter of the book and then I have to read the chapter again because
that's academic books for you, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And apart from that, I'm just carrying on doing the research and the background reading for my podcast and for my occasional guest appearances elsewhere, talking about comic stuff. So yeah.
Is it something that you're going to keep very personal to yourself, or are you going to occasionally mention it on the podcast, or maybe do a blog or something like that?
I'm going to mention it on the podcast, and I'm hoping to get, I'm certainly going to ask the course organizer to come on my podcast, and maybe
that's
some of the other.
That's a bit of a licky ass thing.
Yeah, your brown nose.
And maybe some of the other students. Obviously, we'll see. But I have promised Tony I'm going to try and sneak him into a lecture.
That's the plan.
Did he get Tony as a guest speaker?
Oh,
yeah,
God, yeah. This is the blues.
He's going to come and do the autobiographical comics of Grey and Peanut. Yeah,
Eric Cabbage. Do you know? Have you had a look at the? Can you view what the lessons are going? Excuse me, I'm a thick person who never went to university, but can you view what the subjects are going to be that are covered yet? Or
so there's a variety of modules, and you have to do some compulsory modules on theory and practice, and also film and comics. And then there's a variety of optional modules that you've got to choose. I think one from column A and one from column B, and they cover all sorts of history, politics in comics and graphic novels, queer representation in comics, feminism. I
think that's the one I'm lecturing on, actually. I think
is that right? Yeah. Well, you're the obvious person.
Obvious choice.
Yeah. Top of the list, I should imagine, when they were drawing up that short list. So yes, there'll be some serious stuff in there as well to look at. It will just be me saying, yeah, but have you read Swamp Thing? Have you read Captain Britain by Alan Moore?
Yeah.
Well,
do you think it's? Were you surprised? Because it sounds political is the wrong, socially relevant, I suppose, is what the word I'm looking for. Were you surprised that it took that sort of socially relevant side and also the movie side? Were you disappointed? Were you looking for something else, or is that what you don't mind, or are you quite happy to do that? Or
no, I'm quite happy to do that. I mean, I'm not at all surprised that in 2020 and 2021 that they've got so many socially relevant modules to the comic studies. I suppose film and TV is like the biggest thing that's happening pop culturally, I suppose, in the last, because of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, basically, but also Netflix and everything else. Comic House making the movie of ACP.
God,
for example.
No, I mean, I think good. They probably, in a way, they have to also teach what they know, and apparently the Salisbury Centre at University of East Anglia, Norwich, I think, is Avengers headquarters in the movies.
Oh wow! Cool.
Yeah. So one of the buildings is anyway. So I mean, I'm not disappointed that we're going to be talking about movies.
Well, we love the movies as well, don't we? So it's
exactly. We have a great time. And the socially relevant stuff. Yeah, I mean, of course,
Well, I know because I've listened to the podcast you do with your daughter, and she occasionally tells you off, doesn't she? She
does. Yes.
Yeah, she's much more aware of that sort of thing, and I learned some things just from a read through of Sandman, along with that podcast you did, about stuff that just never occurred to me. So I learned a lesson from that, and I can imagine that's going to be times 10 by the time you get in a classroom.
Yeah. So my daughter Jenny has grown up, and she did art at Chelsea, and she works in short film festivals now. And she, I gave her comics like Halo Jones and Sandman when she was a teenager. And we've done a podcast about a complete reread of Neil Gaiman's Sandman. And as Tony says, we were going through that, and I was saying, oh, this was really quite progressive. And she was going, is it though? 30 years later, it's a bit weird. Yes, he introduces queer characters and he immediately kills them all off and things like that. And you go, oh, right, yes, So, yes, there is that stuff that will be challenging and interesting for me. But, I'm not, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to be challenged on this stuff. And to learn new stuff and new ways of looking.
I can only compare it to when I started working at No Brown. When I went in the office, I can feel it in my stomach. I can feel it in my chest. It's about to burst out, me saying, but did you read Defenders when Gerber was, it's like that. And I walked in there and I realized that nobody there was in that that era or that world of comics. And I can just hear myself in my own head saying, "Play it cool, Tony. Play it cool. Play it cool. Play it cool." Yeah, Hilda's great, isn't it? Look at the animation style and that. It's brilliant. Yeah. You just have to play it cool. So you might have to do a bit of that. Ron saying,
I will.
Yeah, but what about Dylan's dread? No. Sure. It's almost like that. You got this inner monologue going on. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to hear the story when Steve Dillon left the artwork in the pub? It's a great story.
Yeah.
He was on a pub crawl and he lost the artwork. Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's recreate it.
Yeah.
Everyone do shots. It's whenever I hear anyone say, when I'm in a pub and I hear someone say, "Let's do shots," then I realise it's me. Yeah.
And they're saying, right, now back to Fun Home.
Yeah.
Yes.
I say, Howard the Duck.
Tilly Walden.
Well.
Anyway, but yes, it is going to challenge me, but I am looking forward to it. It's going to be an interesting year.
Yes.
And I will report back.
Oh, God, brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, good stuff, man.
We'll have I'll tell you what, we'll get you on at the end of the year, shall we?
Yeah.
That's
a good shout.
Just get you to open your results just as we're sitting there.
Live on show.
Yeah.
I'm just going to write it all down. That's going to be my dissertation.
Do a transcript of this show.
Yeah.
Transcript, yeah. Could I have the transcript, Vince?
My fear of comics by Eamonn Clarke.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Everything that's wrong with the toxic comic readers.
Yeah.
But
we will, of course, we'll put a link in the show notes for a lot of the stuff we talked about, and like the John Freeman link, etc. For you people that
Good old John. Shout out to John.
Yeah. Doing the great work for the comics community. It doesn't get enough shout outs. That man, and we love him.
Yeah,
He's the dude.
Yes. So if you are unaware that some of this stuff exists, then you'll be able to check it out. And yes, so Eamonn's going to be back in just over a year when he gets his results. I will hold you
after I've been to Freshers' Fair and Rag Week. Yeah.
You want to join the equivalent of footlights at the university.
Oh my God.
I will, that's right.
Yeah, brilliant.
You could do a play called Troll.
Troll.
God. Well, we're going to get onto the recommendations in a minute, Tony, so don't blow your wad first. Yeah. But do we have any shout-outs this week, gents, before we do that?
I've got a couple.
Go for it.
So, Tales to Enlighten is on Kickstarter. Devils, Demons and Black Magic. Serial killing Satanists meet big Buddhist ideas in a 300-page collection. Looks absolutely amazing. And Falpy's got a pin-up in it as well, which is good. So if you look for Tales to Enlighten on Kickstarter, you'll find it. It's past its number. It's well past its number, but it's a good one to jump on. I've got to tell you, I think it's going to be the hotness, that one. Bloom, which is the book that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago. Do you remember the one I shared the cover with? That the sort of acid cover to it. That's on it's got issue 2 on Kickstarter at the moment, so have a look for that one. I think get the digital, the full one's going to be too pricey, but I really like that comic. I think it shows promising, it shows knowing the craft. It was all right. And thanks again to the extra people this week who signed up for the Tribute Press Patreon. Thanks guys, I really do appreciate it. And next week gets a bit dark, so there's we're prepping you for something else next week, so watch your space. There you go.
Shout out to Ben Francis Cook, BJ Francis Cook, the writer of New York City Gallows.
Oh yeah,
who got in touch with us this week, and we're having an ad in the next issue of New York City.
We are having an ad, are we?
Yeah,
thanks, man.
We are.
Oh, did you speak to him? Because
I spoke to him.
Oh, well done. Oh, because I said I didn't think we'd be able to get back to you in time because I think we had quite a tight deadline.
Yeah.
Oh, well done.
I'm on it.
All over it, baby.
Next week you'll hear about Ben hates me and I missed the deadline. No, but thank you very much, Ben. Dan, do you have any shout-outs?
No, I kind of completely bereft of shout-outs.
Just be you.
Shout out to Cliff Cumber.
Yeah.
There you go.
Although a small shout-out, Steve Sims was chatting to me today. There may be some Battle Badgers stuff on the horizon.
Brilliant. He's an absolute dude as well.
Yeah. Not from me. No,
okay.
no. He was just talking to me about some stuff. Very exciting stuff. If you haven't got Battle Badgers yet, what's wrong with you? Get it.
What's wrong with you? Yeah.
Right. Speaking of things you should get, recommends this week. Now the guest goes first. So, Eamon, what would you like to recommend to our lovely listeners?
I've got 2. I've just finished reading. This isn't a new one. Neither of these are new, I'm afraid. This is My Favourite Thing Is Monsters by Emil Ferris, book 1, which is a big, weighty volume. I think
this is on my wish list, actually.
There you go.
Beautiful looking book.
Yeah. So if anybody doesn't know, this is it's late 1960s Chicago. It's about a young girl who's obsessed with monsters and monster magazines, and she does these sort of recreations of covers of monster magazines, and she draws the main character as a sort of wolf girl rather than a human form, but everybody else is in there. There's some fantastic characters. There's so much going on in this book. It's a murder mystery. There's politics. There's stuff about Berlin in the 1930s and characters escaping from Berlin just before the war. There's so much going on. There's even, when I was reading it, I realised that one of the characters, when you get that thing in ghost stories, you realise which character's the ghost.
Okay.
So there's that going on, and then it ends on a cliffhanger because this is book 1, and book 2 is supposed to be coming out for years, for the last 3-4 years, and it keeps getting pushed back. It's a bit like I suppose Barry Windsor Smith's own Monsters, which is coming out again.
It started showing up on people's doorsteps, isn't it? I think somebody said to me that. Yeah.
Oh right. So anyway, that's my first.
That's
my favourite thing is Monsters.
Nice. And it's done in an original style, isn't it? As well, Eamonn, that one.
Yeah, so it looks like she's done it in a lined notebook. So it looks like, literally looks like the sort of journal of a young girl in Chicago, 1968, and she has all these amazing coloured portraits of the people on the streets. It's sort of like certain grotesque characters. There's a bit of art history in there because her and her brother are also obsessed with art and going to museums and so on. And it's a really weird style. There's all sorts of stuff in there. It's fantastic. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I started it today. It's not a quick read. There's a lot to it.
It's a big. There's a lot going on, and there's various clues I think throughout the book about what's happened because her upstairs neighbour in this apartment block they live in has died, and I think everybody thinks it's a suicide, but she thinks it's a murder, and so she's trying to solve the mystery. And there's all sorts of family stuff, and then there's politics going on as well. So it's fascinating. Yeah. I finally got round to reading it. It'd been on the shelf for a while, and it's so good. And the creator,
go on, man.
Well, Eamonn Clarke, because she had West Nile virus encephalitis and was paralysed. And this was part of her getting back to drawing again as she recovered, was picking up pens and felt pens and coloured pencils and so on, and doing all this. Literally, I gather at some points with the pen taped to her hand. So,
really? Some of the cross-hatching in the back of that. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's got a creepy ventriloquist doll in it as well, so that's always good, isn't it?
I know. By the way, I know that Sarah House is currently shouting at her phone because she's been telling us to read this since it came out. To be fair. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, man. I stupidly read it on digital, and you don't read it on digital. Buy the copy of it because you can look at the full pages of. It's kind of like really elaborate doodles. It's kind of in a way how it is. But pages full of it, and it's just drenched in cross hatching and faces and little bits of colour that appear here and there, and yes, it's really interesting.
Yeah, fascinating. So that's the one I would recommend. And then if I just quickly do my other one, do you want me to do the other one now?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I've been looking at a digital copy, and I'm waiting for the hard copy to arrive of the Spider's Syndicate of Crime. So this is the 1960s British comic book character, the Spider, and this is Rebellion owning the archive and putting out this reprint. And there's I think you can get a nice web shop exclusive cover by Chris Weston again.
It looks great, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And he loves all these classic British comic book characters and does great sort of covers of them. That's the Spider was a sort of anti-hero, villainous character who sort of becomes more heroic as it goes on, and created by Ted Cowan and Reg Bunn. I think there should be more comic book creators called Reg.
In a postcard from. Yeah.
Yes. But then the interesting thing, which I don't really know very much about, although there's an article in the Judge Dredd magazine about it this month, is that Jerry Siegel, one of the creators of Superman, is apparently at one of his loose ends, or he's having one of his fallouts with DC at the time, and he was looking for work, and he wrote to Amalgamated Press and said, "I'd like to write some comics for you," and they gave him they bumped Ted Cowan and gave Jerry Siegel. So Jerry Siegel, the creator of Superman, writes this British comic book in the 60s, slightly obscure character, and that's about all I know about it, but I'd be fascinated to know a bit more. So
it's really interesting, isn't it? So it appeared, it got reprinted, didn't it, in Vulcan magazine as well? I think it was one of the stories that was in that, wasn't it?
That's the one that Chris Weston found it in, yeah.
That's right, yeah. And then it was, wasn't he brought back as part of that thing that Leah Moore, John Reppion and Dave Gibbons did?
Albion,
that's it. I think, didn't he appear in that? He certainly appeared in a reprint. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, he has turned up from time to time, been referenced. He does appear as a character in Albion, I believe. And there was a hardcover, which I've also got. There was a hardcover reprint of it a few years ago.
Yeah.
Which has got a cover blurb that says, "Arguably the greatest villain in British comics, Dave Gibbons." That's by Dave Gibbons, rather.
Yeah.
So anyway, that one, The Spiders Syndicate of Crime from Rebellion, is coming out. Oh, it's out now, I think, and I'm waiting for the hard copy to arrive. And if anybody wants to come on the Megacity Book Club podcast and tell me about why Jerry Siegel, or how Jerry Siegel ended up writing it, then please do get in touch.
Oh, Chris Weston must be a great one for that. You've had him on before, though, haven't you? So,
he would, wouldn't he? Yes, he did the Trigon Empire with me, yeah.
Obviously, me and Vince are quite close to him. We're quite friendly with him.
Oh, yeah. Went to a Pizza Express once. Now we're best mates. Right. Who would like to go next?
I've got two.
Okay.
So shall I give? I've got two worthy mentions, then a review. Shall I do my worthy mentions? Then you can do yours, Dan. How'd that be?
Yeah, sounds good.
So I have a recommend coming in a minute, but just worthy mentions is Geiger issue 1 from Image by Jeff Johns and Gary Frank. I actually loved this. I wrote to you just before we come online, didn't I? Saying just brilliant, just sci-fi, apocalyptic, just really interesting stuff. And Origins from Boom, which is by written by Clay McLeod Chapman, art by Jacob Rebelka and Patrizio Delpeche on colours. Fucking hell, that's a book and a half. If you can have a chance, have a look at some of the. I think I tweeted one of the panels. Just drenched in gorgeous art, just like really unusual stuff. I think it's a mini series. I think issue 5 just came out, but absolutely gorgeous. Have a look for that. Boom. It's called Origins from Boom. Really impressed. Okay.
Nice. Dan, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I picked this one up, and it's one of those comics I was meaning to pick up for years and years and years, because I always saw it like in the press and people talking about it. And when I listened to it on Tony's Never Iron Anything, that was kind of like you know what, fuck it, I'm going to get this. And it's Black Sad.
Oh, mate. Yeah.
And that kind of sums up, mate, fucking hell.
Yeah.
It's just something else.
It's
incredible. There's more art in a page of that than there is in some old comics these days. It's just flabbergasting, isn't it?
Yeah, just absolutely I look at this work and I think, what's this guy doing? And then look at my stuff and it's like, this geezer's like just absolutely out of his fucking league. And that includes writing and art. It's just both so strong.
How far have you got into it, man?
I've only got this first trade.
Right.
I'm not sure if it is the first.
It's quite thick, though, isn't it? Because doesn't it have 5 stories in it? Well, I think...
No, this one, I've got 3 in it.
Right, okay, right.
3 cases, as it were.
And the first one's quite noir, isn't it? It's like a very traditional noir.
Yeah. I think it's only 3 cases. The first one is an ex-girlfriend of his.
Yeah.
Who's a celebrity. The second one is like a kind of a take on like white...
Yeah,
KKK.
It's the racism. Yeah, it's the racism
that's
story.
my favourite one.
I really like that.
I never see. You know, comics. We talked about it a bit, didn't we?
Yeah.
With previously, comics don't do. We don't. There's no politics in comics. Well, there is in that, but they do it so well.
Yeah.
It just ridicules the idea of the Ku Klux Klan by only having white furred animals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
If we should tell, they're all anthropomorphic animals, but they don't. Yeah. It doesn't really matter too much the species. Kind of. That's right, isn't it? Like, he's a cat. And they make references to it, but it's not like it's a thing. But like,
they're all the same. They're all human size. So a rhino would be just like a bulky human size, wouldn't they? Yeah.
But oh God, the stories are so well done. Like a lot of the pulpy kind of noir stuff, but you think a story's going one way and then it turns and then turns again. And genuinely, there was so many moments in this when I was thinking, "Oh, is this it?" And then it would turn and you think, "Oh, bloody hell! Didn't see that coming."
Especially the ending.
Yeah, a lot of the endings are just, especially the Ku Klux Klan one. They're like twists at the end, and it's like, wow. These are the adult. I have to.
Yeah, I don't know what you, but I do actually quite like watching anthropomorphic animals having sex with each other. It's a favourite of mine, you know.
Well, that refers. Well, I made that reference earlier with the monkeys and the tail.
Yeah.
Sequence. I did read a review. Like I was trying to go through the reviews and.
Have we lost him?
Yeah.
He's so excited about it. We lost him.
Yeah, he's gone.
He's gone.
Oh no. The monkeys cut off the internet.
Yeah.
He didn't get a bit turned on and then to turn his mic off, did he?
Yeah. Maybe
Somebody threw out some peanuts.
Yeah, maybe. But I mean, we can only say that if you haven't read Black Sad,
Get on it.
Do it.
Yeah.
There's and be thankful because there's quite a few you can check out. No?
Yeah, they're all amazing. Have you read them, Eamonn?
I have. Yes, I've read one of them. There's one here on the shelf somewhere. But yeah, they are fantastic. As you say, the amount of work on each page.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Before Tony goes next, my recommendation is friend of the show, Matt Simmons. Finally, I'm going to talk about his book, Bastard Galaxia. So, which
I like that. Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
Which is mad and brilliant, and in all the right places. Steve Gregson and Matt Simmons. I believe it was a webcomic that started. The book I got. I mean, I don't know if the book's still in print. Forgive me, Matt. But it was one of those that Thought Bubble last year. I finally got around to getting my hands on it, and now I'm going to give it a proper shout out because basically. It's just brilliant. I love this character, and it's a love letter to the 80s and 90s sort of cartoons and stuff. And what it's about is it's the classic. It's all about an evil villain, called Bastard Galaxia. Funnily enough, he has it all: money, power, and a super awesome base that he really kind of wishes was shaped like a skull. Spoilers: it might be shaped a little bit like some junk, as in like. Penis.
So my internet we're completely gone. I'm calling in on 4G.
Oh wow!
He's back.
Hey, you're back. You came in at just the right time, Dan, when I was talking about dicks.
Awesome. Here I come. Literally.
So Bastard Galaxia is basically he's a big time villain. And where has he got all his money? From action figure sales. Because he learned
the price of an action figure, by the way.
Oh,
yeah,
it's
doing quite well.
Don't get me started on that.
Yeah.
But now he's trying to. He's got his own tie line, but he's trying to straddle the line between being evil and marketable, whilst not letting his crew know that he's sold out. Even if his latest plans all involve taking down the super rad Bros F Man Star, which is an amazing name, whilst wearing cool costumes and using toy grade weaponry. I mean, that was obviously the synopsis that I put a bit of flavour into, but I mean, the movie poster tagline they give it is brilliant. It's the comic where good and evil are meaningless and action figure sales are God. But this is hilarious. I mean, it's got such a wonderful style to it. This book deserves to be huge, if you ask me. I mean. The character of Galaxia, he's a villain with a cape, and he's got like the Doctor Strange, the collar, the classic. That was the classic sort of villain collar, wasn't it? In like the sort of silver, was it Bronze Age, Silver Age? Oh, God, don't know, whatever age it was. He's got that sort of villain sort of collar and suit. His mask or his head is a skull, seemingly in a glass dome. But he's no mere sort of Skeletor rip-off, just laughing and being evil. He's actually really hilarious. Like he's like his base at the beginning. He's showing some new people around his base, including one bit, the Maze of Madness, and it traps any fool who dares to escape it. Nobody knows how to get out of it because it's so mad. And as he's walking people around, he actually forgets how to get out himself. It's not an all ages comic because there's lots of spicy language which makes me laugh. And I love the fact that and it just makes the character more endearing. And a lot of it is Galaxia's twin brother sort of shows up, who seems to be a normal human guy. Although he's got sort of, I mean, he looks like a hipster, but yeah, and basically Galaxia sort of showing him the sights and about his business, and there's a lot, there's heroes, there's sidekicks, there's henchmen.
It's a trade, isn't it? It's quite a long issue. It's quite a long thing, isn't it?
It's a proper trade. Yeah. I've got Volume 1, Power, Corruption and Lies. I know they do some little mini comics that they send out with stuff. I certainly got some stuff there. They're always thinking of content to add to this, and I hope
cat butts.
Yeah, I hope there's more of this because they got the great, and I know Dan likes these, the fake adverts for toys and stuff going all the way through it, because the toy theme is going all the way through it. But some of the like Galaxia himself, he takes his brother to a bar and he goes, "Barkeeper, round of drinks for the house. On me, Bastard Galaxia." And his brother's like, "Dude, I had no idea that people actually did that in real life." And Galaxia, "Typically, I don't imagine that they do, Kevin. I'm just that fucking rich now." And it's got fucking rich in big letters. As Galaxia is trying to flick a peanut, peanuts again, he's trying to flick a peanut into his mouth, but because he's got a glass dome over his head, it's just bouncing off the dome. It's just brilliant. I think Matt's got such a great sort of handle of dialogue, and it sort of takes the tropes that there's many stories now that talk about the villains, don't they? They think they're being a little bit different and sort of, I can't think of the word, but this Bastard Galaxia is one that does it right. Get on it now, whether it be the webcomic, whether it be the book. Go to Matt's store and try and get more. We'll put a link in the show notes, but. Yeah, I mean, I can see some fan art being done soon from my good self of this character. And,
it suits your style there.
And shame on me for not jumping on it sooner. It was one that I was meaning to get, and it's properly up my street. So there you go. Highest of recommendations, that one. And
cool.
Tony.
I'm writing all this down.
Oh, good man. Yeah. Tony, take it away.
So mine's also by a listener. The writer is Ed Whiting. And the comic is called Bigger Fish. Art by Hakan Aydin, colours by J. Francis Totti, letters by Robin Jones. There you go. Published by Blacklight Publishing, which I think is Ed's thing. I think it's 44 pages, full colour. So it's longer than a normal comic. It's kind of like an album length, I suppose. Put it that way. It's only available at the moment at Get My Comics, but I think it's going on Comic House as well. I think set in 1971 in New York. It's a violent, gritty. US gangland action thriller. I'm going to start trying to summarise it as. I'm a sucker for that time period. I love anything in the 70s, long before I was born, obviously, so I quite like the readings about that. It opens at an apartment which is being used to stash a large amount of drugs. There's a raid by the NYPD, but as it turns out, they're really there just to grab the drugs and kill the dealers. And then the story goes on to Mike, who is just got out of prison. Turns out he's also... ex-military. He's done 2 tours in Vietnam, and he went to prison for killing a man who tried to rape a woman. So he's out now, and he's looking to make some money, and he's back in the city. And he gets himself involved in a drugs deal, which is kind of mafia, but off the books mafia with a buddy of his, and because the mafia didn't deal with the Mexicans, they were sort of their enemy. So off the books, these two guys go off to do a coke deal. Heroin was more the drug of choice at the time by the mafia, but they've decided to mix it up and go in for a bit of coke, and it all goes wrong, as happens with these things. It all goes wrong, and I won't spoil the last 2/3 of the book because there's so many like twists and turns. So many people turn up. He does that. This happens. This person is this. It's very interesting. It's got some really good dialogue. One of the reasons I liked it is it's sharp dialogue. It's not afraid to show action. It's not afraid to show violence, and it really does. Reveal the sort of grittiness and the dodginess and the violence and the quick to act motivations of drug dealers in the 70s and pre-internet and all that sort of thing. There's a lot of talking in it actually, but I didn't find it ever irksome. It was never tiresome. It actually moves the story along, and it's not exposition-y. It's character based, and there's a reason for it, and you'll find out the reason towards the end of it. I'm going to stick with it. I think there's another one coming. The art is solid. It shows the action well. There's some good facial acting. I had an issue at one point where two of the characters look very similar to the point where I thought they were brothers, but I don't think they are. It uses some great panel layouts. There's some use of sort of cascading panels and some circular indents and stuff like that, which I really like. And he's not afraid of a car seat. He's not afraid of a car, drawing a car. I know sometimes it's not always the easiest thing to draw a car, especially when you've got to draw a car that looks like it's from the 70s. And he's not afraid of a crowd scene as well, which is good. Good design on the cover. The cover design has a 70s font, I'm going to say. It looks a little bit disco. Which is really good. You can find Ed at Ed Whiting, EDWHITING 209, Ed Whiting 209 on Twitter. He's also written for Future Quake and Something Wicked and Sector 13, among some other things. I think writing for Dog Breath and Future Quake and all those guys is a really good learning path for them, because they've been putting out good comics for many years. And this, why have we never had them on here? I don't know, but we always talk about it, don't we? We always talk about they'll be good people to get on. Have you had any of them on, Eamonn? Because I know they're...
No, I did ask Dave from Future Quake if he was, but he wasn't really up for the idea of podcasting. But you know, maybe the power of the ACP would, you know,
put him right off.
God.
Yeah, never come back. But and Ed's because he said to me, I did the comic arrival right now, and I said, oh yeah, because I mentioned you last week, but I'm going to do a proper review of it this week, and he'd already listened to last week, so that's quite nice. So thanks, Ed. It's a good one. Bigger Fish, it's called. I think it's on Comic House. It's well worth a read. It's got a nice, slick, pro level art, pro level story. It's something happens at the end of issue 1. I won't spoil it, but it's worth carrying on with as well. There you go.
Nice. That sounds good.
Nice. Yeah, we're not about spoilers on this show, but we are about brilliant comics. So go out and get any of those that we talked about. And thank you, Eamonn. Thank you, Eamonn, again for your recommendations and for joining us this week. You've been a star. You've been a legend.
Cheers, Eamonn.
It's been a pleasure. Can I do a quick shout out for you guys? Just to say that, you know, I'm a huge fan of this podcast. The stuff you do week after week, the positivity, the fascinating interviews, the passion that you bring for small press comics and all forms of comics is just fantastic. And I was thinking, you're telling your story about the cosplayer at breakfast. There was a couple of years ago. Here we go. A couple of years ago, when, let's say, a certain male comics creator was disgracing himself or was revealing to be, a bit dodgy, shall we say. Yeah, and I remember you guys tweeting to say that if anybody's giving you a hard time at a convention, come to our table. Yeah, and we'll look after you. And I thought that was just summed you guys up, because even Tony would put up with a cosplayer to protect them from So I'm being absolutely serious now. Sincerity pill on. This is a great podcast, and the love and the passion you guys bring to the comics in this every week after week, and the fact you do it every week is astonishing.
Yeah,
so
surprises us.
My hats off.
Yeah. Thanks, man. We do appreciate it. It's very kind of you. I have to say, Mega City Book Club is always a constant on dog walks. I absolutely love listening to that. Yeah, you get some really great guests on there as well, man. Yeah, really good.
Thank you, Tony. I'm glad to be in your ears when you're out dogging.
That is perfection.
Both at once, which is particularly quite a talent of yours.
Yeah, I tell you what, that brought us all down to earth. I had a feeling there was too much love in this room, but we'll clean that up afterwards. Right now, thank you, Eamonn. You're far too kind. And we just long to be as highbrow as you one day. But until then, if you want to complain about anything you heard on the show, you can email us, allcomicspod@gmail.com. Are you worried about peanuts? Not the comic strip.
Do you stop for peanuts?
Do you stop for peanuts? Let us know. Whether it be on the email or maybe on Twitter @TheAwesomePod. The thing is, we mention this and we laugh about it, but our lovely listeners, there's normally fan art, there's normally something trending, something happens online after this show. Someone's,
I'm sorry that someone will have to explain who Brian and Pascal are to their partner, as has happened this week. Yeah,
don't, because we'll get another Cumber original.
The best one was we've got some great ones. Cumbers was great, but we've got the one which Damien did of it as if it was a wrestling match between my two balls, like a poster.
Yeah. Just, I mean,
You were entirely
like they said in AVP, whoever wins, we all lose. Follow us on Twitter at The Awesome Pod. If you do the Book of Faces, go to facebook.com/awesomecomicspodcast. And we mentioned it earlier, but please join the community group Awesome Comics Talk. Creators, comic fans, comic readers, comic convention organisers, loads of different people on there, and they're just there to talk about comics. Not hard sell, no nothing. It's a wonderful community of people, and let's face it, the only reason to be on Facebook. So search for Awesome Comics Talk, join. There's a couple of questions. If you listen to the show, you'll get in immediately. It's as simple as that. Because we like to treat our listeners as long as they listen to us, because we've got fragile egos. Yeah. Thank you for feeding those egos by listening to us, whether it was on the website awesomecomics.podbean.com. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe and leave a review. Just helps get the word out about the show, the wonderful mad things we talk about every week, as well as the beauty of indie comics. If you listen to us on other networks like Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, Podnose, Podknife, what other networks are we on, Tony?
One of Eamonn's favourites, actually, Pod Lenticular Cover.
I wonder if they'll be covering that in the course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fat covers.
Where's my die cut cover class?
Where's my 90s implosion module?
God, did you notice how his tone dropped?
Yeah.
Keeping it real.
Keeping it real. Oh, and yes, thanks for a lovely show, everyone. Where can people find us online, etc.? Tony?
If you go to patreon.com/tribute press, you can sign up for £1.49 a month, or you can find me at neverironanything.com.
Daniel?
You can find me on Twitter at Vanguard Comic, and you can read Vanguard at vanguardcomic.com.
You can find me on the social media at Jester Diablo. And Eamonn, you legend. You who have lowered yourself to our level, all for entertainment this week. Where can people find you and the brilliant Mega City Book Club podcast?
At megacitybookclub.com, or find me on Twitter, MCBC Podcast. I got that wrong. Twitter at MCBC Podcast, or mcbcpodcast@gmail.com. There, got it.
I mean, even nice. His name sounds like a professional radio station. Do you know what I mean? MCB. Yeah, it's just. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's class. Go forth, listen to loads of podcasts, read loads of comics this week, guys. I mean, the sun may be out. It just means you go outside and read comics. That's all it means.
Sun's out, guns out.
Oh, guns is going to be out, so watch yourself.
Yeah, watch out, ladies.
Yeah, careful, Dan.
They'll get you.
Yeah. And if you see Brian and Pascal on your travels, run the other way.
Yeah, call the police immediately.
We'll call the police, and we will put a support line in the show notes. But thank you very much for listening. Enjoy your weeks wherever you are. We hope you're happy, healthy, and staying safe and brilliant, like we know you are. From Dan, Tony, Eamon, and myself, have a great week. Eamon, it's not 2 hours. It's 2 hours late. You better be prepared. Have a great week.
Okay.
And as always, guys, what do?
Stay awesome.
Oh, that was good. Very good. That's what happens when podcasts unite. Do you know what I mean?
2 hours of practicing.
Awesome.
2 hours of practicing. and that was even before he spoke a word to us.
Shouting in the garden.
Yeah. Well, we've all done that. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.